Come into our house of hope and love, of peace and justice, of wholeness and healing. Come in here where we welcome the certain and the seeking, the lifers and the newcomers, the beloved and the brokenhearted. All of you can find a home here at Throop, where we go love the world from the heart of Pasadena and from the very heart of our homes. Our order of worship is online, and I think Brad Wallace, our live stream operator, is putting that in the chat right now so you can follow along at home. And if you're looking for ways to connect in the coming week, you'll find those listed as announcements at the end of the order of worship. So I was going to say this month, but it was now last month and this month, while we're doing live stream only from the sanctuary, I've had the real pleasure of having different Throop members in every week as my co-anchor. And today that co-anchor is Paula Trubisky. And many of you know Paula and her enthusiastic smile from her work at Throop as our Throop Learning Garden facilitator. I'm going to give you a little bit more background on Paula, though, because you might not know all the gifts that she brings into Throop and into the world. At one point, Paula and her family lived in Washington, D.C., and while she lived there, Paula worked on policy and did lobbying in D.C., learning the complexities of democracy, primarily focused on protecting the integrity of scientific research. And then Paula and her family moved from D.C. to Tucson, Arizona, and there she used her policy background and jobs that focused on creating collaborations across scientific disciplines at the University of Arizona. She also spent time there as a teacher at a beautiful, loving early education school. And then her family made the move over to Burbank in 2010, where she became active in the local community on policy affecting education, the arts, and zero waste issues. So if you've had a chance to talk to Paula ever, you know that she does not sit still for very long. And so she has developed a particular talent of multitasking while spending an enormous amount of time on hold for health insurance issues, doctors' offices, pharmacies, and other daily tasks, particularly increasing her skills in the kitchen to melody loops of royalty-free on-hold music. So you'll hear a little bit more about how Paula weaves this experience into the gifts that she wants to leave the world later on in our service. But Paula, thank you for getting up early on a Sunday morning and coming on down to Throop and doing this with me.
Thanks for having me.
So friends, it is your generous donations that allow us to bring you this live stream worship every Sunday from our beautiful sanctuary. And guess what? You're going to be back in here with us very, very soon. I promise. If you're able to give a financial donation today, you can do that online. You can text to give. The ways to do that are in the order of worship. You can send a check right on into Throop. Each one of us is a light in the world, and the flame from our chalice symbolizes and reflects that light.
Our time together in worship is intimately connected with our daily lives. As a symbol of that connection, we light our chalice with the words from Ganila Norris. A Jewish midrash tells us, when the world was created, God made everything a little bit incomplete. Rather than make bread grow right out of the earth, God made wheat grow so that we might make it into bread. In this way, we could become partners in completing the work of creation. Recognition, repetition, reverence, receiving. These are the ways we grow to know that we ourselves are an integral part of the whole. We too are mana. We light a second candle to honor the people and the ancestors whose lands we now occupy. The land under and around Throop was once and still is the home of the Gabrielino Tongva Band of Mission Indian people. May this knowledge and the awareness lead us into seeking justice and equity for all. We light a third candle symbolizing our watershed of the Arroyo Seco. May their waters continue to nourish life in our communities. We take a moment of silence, holding all of these in our hearts.
When Terry Trindler and I led worship in here on January 2nd, that was the Sunday where we both kind of burned things from burned pieces of paper that symbolized things we wanted to leave behind in 2021. And then we chose an inspiration word card, a word to guide us, if we would let it, through 2022. And the card I received that day was flexibility. And so when you get these cards, you never know how they're going to show up in your life. But sure enough, I have had many opportunities so far to be flexible, and today is one of those days. Our beloved musician in residence, Megan, is stranded on the East Coast. She is going to be able to make her way back here, but you might have noticed we didn't have an incredible prelude this morning. And so this means that I get to share some a cappella music, hymns with you today. And so friends, if you're watching this live stream and if you know these hymns or if you have a hymnal, please sing with me. Come, come, whoever you are, number 188. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again come. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again come. And as we come together each and every Sunday, some words that bind us as a religious and spiritual community are the words from our promise to our planet. And please share these words with me. And as we share them, today feels so much like a first day of spring. Call into your heart and mind just one piece of earth that you want to bring a little bit of extra love to today. As members of the family of living beings on earth, we are guided by the Unitarian Universalist principle of respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. With hearts filled with love for it, eyes nurtured by its beauty, and minds ruminating on ways to protect its sacred and scarce resources, we promise to nurture the well-being of all life and of the planet itself. Our reading today is Let Me Die Laughing, written by Reverend Mark Morrison Reed. And Mark was one of my professors at Meadville Lombard Theological School. Mark's been very involved in denominational affairs really since Mark was a young person. When Mark was a junior high or high school student, Mark sang in the Chicago Children's Choir, which met at First Unitarian Church of Chicago. His family was very involved in that congregation. And then as an adult, as a minister, Mark's written several books on Black Unitarian Universalist history. I encourage you to check those out when and if you have the opportunity to do that. And so, Paula, thank you for sharing Mark's words.
Let Me Die Laughing by Mark Morrison Reed. We are all dying, our lives always moving towards completion. We need to learn to live with death and to understand that death is not the worst of all events. We need to fear not death, but life. Empty lives, lonely, loveless lives, lives that do not build upon the gifts of each of us have been given, lives that are like living deaths, lives which never take the time to savor and appreciate, lives in which we never pause to breathe deeply. What we need to fear is not death, but squandering the lives we have been miraculously given. So let me die laughing, savoring one of the life's craziest moment. Let me die holding the hand of one I love and recalling that I tried to love and I was loved in return. Let me die remembering that life has been good and that I did what I could, but today just remind me that I am dying so that I can live, savor, and love with all my heart.
And with Mark's poetic and prophetic words still taking hold of our own hearts and souls, I offer you all a blessing for moving toward completion. And so take a breath. Let your body come into a pause this morning. And as your body comes into a pause, connect in with your heart. Connect in with your center. Take a breath and then expand your energy and imagine it reaching out and connecting with someone in one of your circles. Take a breath and rest in this blessing that comes from me to you. May the gently warming spring days awaken the longing that resides just under the surface of your skin. All around us, buds full of promise emerge on fruit trees. They hold untold possibilities. The blossoms will one day bring beauty to our eyes, nectar to the bees. Some of those blossoms will go on to bear fruit, which we'll then get to enjoy and feel in our bellies. And some of those fruits will fall to the earth, eventually nourishing the soil. You, too, hold untold possibilities. Your life continually unfolding, your gifts continually taking shape. Each day offers a chance to play some part in completing the work of creation. In the coming week, let the earth's warmth seep into your skin and into your soul. Let it find the edges of your longing, and may it reawaken your own desire to savor all that this life offers you in the days to come. Take a breath. Connect with your heart. Connect with your center. Take a breath and bring your energy and this blessing back into you, awakening you to untold possibilities. How could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul. So that brief song ended up in our teal hymnal. And I was really surprised and delighted when that hymnal came out and I saw that song in there, because I had learned that song many years ago when I was deeply engaged in youth ministry. And one of the gifts of being an adult who works with Unitarian Universalist youth is that you get invited into youth spaces, and then in particular you get invited into worship services that are planned and led by high school students. And so you get this really unique opportunity to see like in the moment young people claiming and naming their own spirituality. And one of the songs that often found its way into those worship services, done in a circle, done as people are looking into each other's eyes, is that song, How could anyone fail to notice? And that song sung in youth circles felt especially powerful because if you remember what it was like as a high school student, you're kind of longing, aren't you, for someone to notice the beauty and the miracle of your life. And so to see those young people singing that to one another as they're taking in each other's beauty, and I like to think not only taking in each other's, but seeing their own beauty reflected in the other youth and adults in that room, I think it must have been a really empowering and affirming experience for them. These past few weeks in our Sunday services, we've been talking about this concept of 3 Gs that was gifted to me by a professor. And those 3 Gs were grounding. Last week we talked about this idea of the genuine that Howard Thurman lifted up in one of his speeches. And then today, our third and last Sunday in this series, is Paula and I will be talking about the gifts that we want to leave the world. And some of you, if you've been coming to Throop for a while, you know that I joke, but it's also serious that everything I learned about being a pastor, I learned as a youth minister and as a camp director. And I try to bring all those skills with me into Throop. And so as someone working with youth, I learned really the importance of being able to slow down with people and to give them really the gift of my full attention. I learned the power of just showing up, because sometimes with high school youth, there wasn't a big trick to it. It was just literally unlocking the door, showing up, and being present for whatever it was they needed to bring into the room. And I feel like in offering that gift of presence, and of course I got it in return, a really integral part of that was like not only being present, but with each of those high school students being able to experience the wholeness and the holiness of who they were right in that moment. Not one day when they were going to grow up, not one day when they had everything all together, but exactly how they were showing up on that day. And that's definitely a ministry skill, a ministry gift that I hope I'm bringing into Throop is that wherever you are on your journey, however you are showing up here, that I'm able to slow down enough and pay attention and experience the wholeness and holiness of who you are. And that's just one of the gifts that I hope to leave the world, is the feeling that someone gets when they are seen for all of who they are. Now, you heard a little bit of Paula's introduction earlier. So when I asked Paula to come into service today and do this, it's because I already knew that Paula has had a lifetime of sharing gifts, and they've been shared in many different ways and have taken a lot of unexpected turns. And so, Paula, thank you so much. And I'm really curious to hear the gifts that you want to leave the world.
Well, I can really embrace the gift that you shared of being present. I have a teenage daughter, and as a parent, sometimes you have to continuously remind yourself, especially with teenagers, that one of the best things that you can do is just be present. So today, I want to focus on passing along and understanding to others the gift of embracing laughter, the gift of embracing hope, and the gift of embracing the power of imagination. The first gift is understanding the power of laughter. As many of you know, my son suffers from a chronic illness. In the beginning, when his health started rapidly declining, I was overwhelmed by fear and uncertainty. No doctor could find answers to what was happening, and my son, a gifted student and athlete, grew more weak, more ill, and more foggy. And 2 years into this uncertain journey, after he was given a diagnosis and he started on a treatment path, my family was gathered together and Zeke was having a good day. I don't know who it was in the room, if it was my husband, if it was my daughter, if it was my son, but something in the room triggered in me a real, true, all-body laughter, the kind that comes from your gut and takes over your entire body, makes you pee a little bit in your pants, the kind that toddlers do so well. I'm not a comedian. I'm not even a joke teller. But in this moment, I truly learned about the gift and the healing power of laughter. Laughing was a healing balm that helped me move forward. It wasn't until right after that happened that I realized that I hadn't truly laughed, a gut-body laugh like that, in 2 years. That moment of laughter helped me to reconnect to the gifts that were all around me in the moment. The poem, Let Me Die Laughing, expresses this so well. The second gift I hope to pass along in the world is an understanding of the gift of hope. I don't need to tell you that we are in times with constant change, the type of change which involves so many decisions we used to make without thinking, like, should I take my child to school today? Or should I get my teeth cleaned at the dentist's office? I just had my first trip to the dentist to get my teeth cleaned since before the pandemic started last week. Hope does not blind me to these realities of uncertainty created by the pandemic, by climate change, by the rise in extremism. Hope helps me to find partners in inspiration. Hope helps me to hold empathy for others that I do not understand or agree with. And hope recharges my bandwidth for ideas that embrace love even when there is so much messaging based on fear. Hope has always been one of my guiding forces. I didn't even know that, but it has. And my time with Throop has helped me understand that, and it's making me stronger. Taking Throop's Building My Own Theology class, the ongoing inspiration I gain from the garden itself and from its community. And then the Throop congregants and the very own Pastor Tara helps to guide me. I go back to the words read this morning in the chalice lighting from the Jewish Madrash. We could become partners in completing the work of creation. Throop is one of my partners. The third gift I hope to pass along in this world is the understanding of the gift of imagination. This past week, I've been listening to a podcast from 2019. It's called Moonrise, and it's by the Washington Post. And it's about the origins of the story behind the United States' decision to go to the moon. And one of the surprises of this mini-series is throughout it, there's an enormous influence of science fiction, and it's woven into the fabric of the story. Those who shared their fantasies of exploring the galaxies fed the imaginations of the scientists, of the soon-to-be astronauts, and of government servants to help them bring space exploration to reality. Imagination is a powerful tool, and I'm so thankful for those who are gifted in storytelling through novels, through art, plays, and music. They create the bandwidth in my head I need to calm my brain and help me find solutions to everyday challenges. And they bring me hope that we will find solution to the big challenges we face. Not too long after I started to help facilitate Throop's learning garden activities, Pastor Tara took me to a bright room up above us on the second floor of this building. It's below the bell tower. And she said, "This can be the garden room." And she handed me some keys. So the vision behind Throop's Learning Garden Inspiration Room, which is how I refer to it, is to create a space to help inspire congregants' imaginations from the gifts of natures. Already the room holds gifts that congregants have been putting together, such as a poem by Tom Hawkins, based on a large pumpkin that was grown in the drought vegetable garden. It has prayer candles decoupaged with dried Throop garden flowers. It holds dried flowers and seed pods picked by the gardeners. We have wildflower seed bombs that have been created by our families here at Throop. We have herb-filled sachets made from dried herbs that we have out in the garden, and once again created by our congregants. We have seed packets made from the Throop garden, and we have fire pit herbs, which I don't know if I know. We've created bundles. No one's used one yet, but it's one of the ideas. And I can't wait for the ideas from other congregants to come once we are here in the building again, and folks are free to explore this new room. Congregants that are planning Throop activities can duck into the room to see if something catches their eye to use for decorating a Throop event, or incorporating into a service, or reaching out to others, even as a thank you. I hope that congregants that are writers, chefs, musicians, and artists who don't typically work in the Throop garden add to our collection of how they are inspired by nature. So for example, I envision this box filled with congregants' recipes made from the Throop Learning Garden harvest. I know that I can't control all that's happening around me, but I also know that I find strength and resilience from the gift of laughter, hope, and imagination. And I hope I inspire others to embrace these gifts too.
You absolutely do. I feel inspired just listening to all that. And I want to get up in that room and get one of those fire pit herb bundles. Paula, when you were talking, one of the phrases you used, I think, was kind of being inspired by partners. And you named a few partners in your story. Thank you. And I heard Throop being named there. And it definitely seems like a theme or a thread in your life has been that you don't work alone. It seems like
I never work alone.
She never works alone. So I'm curious, are you able to share a little bit about either like how you create those partnerships, or kind of do you even know how you do that?
I think that's an ongoing experimentation. Really coming to Throop has been a challenge, in really just being vulnerable, to create partners. Someone who's always reminding me, and I was thinking of him throughout. When you were talking about taking a breath and giving us our blessing, Charles always looks at me and he says, "Take a breath," because I am usually moving when I'm here. I think when we were doing the Building Your Spirituality class, one of my lifelong partnerships that has grounded me is, I call them my three sisterhoods of friends. I have a close friend from 3rd grade, and I have a close friend from 7th grade, and I have a close friend from college, and we're all close together. And those are my always people that I can always go to, even and be vulnerable and reconnect with. None of them live here, but they're a key part of partnerships.
I love that. And can I ask one more question? So, one of the words you used was being able to be vulnerable. And I know from my own experience that I actually didn't even realize that I have a hard time with that until I had a hard time with it. And I was like, oh, because I'm pretty used to curating some of my life experiences for the church community. But I'm just wondering if you had to kind of do anything to really help, enable yourself to be more vulnerable with your communities of care.
Absolutely. I think, a lot of us grow up in families where vulnerability is hidden. We don't openly talk about it. And certainly some of the challenges that I have faced, particularly in the last 10 years, I learned quickly that I needed to be vulnerable because I couldn't do this alone. And finding places to open up, finding places beyond just my husband, my parents, my friends, the 3 women that I talked about, has been very important and helped me become more vulnerable. Even doing this is a big step for me.
Well, thank you so much for trusting us with some of your story and for sharing so many of your gifts at Throop, even though I know we can be an unruly bunch sometimes.
Thank you.
And so as we kind of come into our closing moment, I'll just share another song. Some of you maybe know this from Girl Scout days. I, of course, know it from youth ministry and camping days. From you I receive. From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live. And so we extinguish our chalice flame, but we carry its light with us into all that we do. And friends, as you move into this week, which offers you untold possibilities to be like those buds on the fruit tree, to nourish, to give beauty, to connect, to be vulnerable, to nurture your communities of care and connection. I love you all. Go out and love the world. Amen. And blessed be. Happy Sunday.